negotiations, or any other diplomatic relations? I feel that's a legitimate question.
Thank you, John, and thank you for your service to our country. You know, when I was First Lady, I was privileged to represent our country in 82 countries. I have met with many officials in Arabic and Muslim countries. I've met with kings and presidents and prime ministers and sheikhs and tribal leaders. And certainly in the last years during my time in the Senate, I have had many high-level meetings with presidents and prime ministers in Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Pakistan, and many other countries. I believe that there isn't much doubt in anyone's mind that I can be taken seriously. I believe that other countries have had women presidents and women prime ministers. There are several serving now in Germany and Chile and Liberia and elsewhere. And I have noticed that their compatriots on the world stage certainly take them seriously. I think that it is it would be quite appropriate to have a woman president deal with the Arab and Muslim countries on behalf of the United States of America.
Okay, let's go to another YouTube video.
In 1982, Anwar Sadat traveled to Israel, a trip that resulted in a peace agreement that has lasted ever since. In the spirit of that type of bold leadership, would you be willing to meet separately, without precondition, during the first year of your administration in Washington or anywhere else, with the leaders of Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Cuba, and North Korea, in order to bridge the gap that divides our countries?
I should also point out that Stephen is in the crowd tonight. Senator Obama?
I would. And the reason is this, that the notion that somehow not talking to countries is punishment to them, which has been the guiding diplomatic principle of this administration, is ridiculous. Now, Ronald Reagan and Democratic presidents like JFK constantly spoke to Soviet Union at a time when Ronald Reagan called them an evil empire. And the reason is because they understood that we may not trust them, they may pose an extraordinary danger to this country, but we have the obligation to find areas where we can potentially move forward. And I think that it is a disgrace that we have not spoken to them. We've been talking about Iraq. One of the first things that I would do in terms of moving a diplomatic effort in the region forward is to send a signal that we need to talk to Iran and Syria, because they're going to have responsibilities if Iraq collapses. They have been acting irresponsibly up until this point, but if we tell them that we are not going to be a permanent occupying force, we are in a position to say that they are going to have to carry some weight in terms of stabilizing the region.
I just want to check in with Stephen Sixta if he believes he got an answer to his question.
Hello, I seem to have a microphone in my hand. Well, I'd be interested in knowing what Hillary has to say to that question.
Senator Clinton?
Well, I will not promise to meet with the leaders of these countries during my first year. I will promise a very vigorous diplomatic effort, because I think it is not that you promise a meeting at that high a level before you know what the intentions are. I don't want to be used for propaganda purposes. I don't want to make a situation even worse. But I certainly agree that we need to get back to diplomacy, which has been turned into a bad word by this administration. And I will pursue very vigorous diplomacy, and I will use a lot of high-level presidential envoys to test the waters, to feel the way. But certainly we're not going to just have our president meet with Fidel Castro and Hugo Chavez and, the president of North Korea, Iran, and Syria until we know better what the way forward would be.
Senator Edwards, would you meet with Hugo Chavez, Fidel Castro, Kim Jong-il?
Yes, and I think actually Senator Clinton's right, though. Before that meeting takes place, we need to do the work, the diplomacy, to make sure that the meeting's not going to be used for propaganda purposes, will not be used to just beat down the United States of America in the world community. But I think this is just a piece of a bigger question, which is, what do we actually do? What should the President of the United States do to restore America's moral leadership in the world? It's not enough just to meet with bad leaders. In addition to that, the world needs to hear from the President of the United States about who we are, what it is we represent, that in fact we believe in equality, we believe in diversity, that they are at the heart and soul of what the United States of America is.
We've got another question on the subject.
Dear presidential candidates, see those 3 flags over my shoulder? They covered the coffins of my grandfather, my father, and my oldest son. Someday mine will join them. I do not want to see my youngest sons join them. I have two questions. By what date after January 21st, 2009, will all U.S. troops be out of Iraq? And how many family members do you have serving in uniform?
Senator Dodd.
Well, I've advocated, again, that we have our troops out by April of next year. I believe that the time frame is appropriate to do that. I would urge simultaneously that we do the things we've talked about here, and that is pursue the diplomatic efforts in the region to at least provide Iraq the opportunity to get on its feet. But I believe our military ought to be out before that. If I'm president in January, I'd be advocating a responsible withdrawal that's safe for our troops who are there to provide the resources for them to do it. As I mentioned earlier, I personally served in the National Guard and Reserves. My brother served in the military as well. So in my family, there have been at least two that I'm aware of. I have first cousins of mine that were submarine commanders. My uncle was a commander in World War II in the Navy. So there have been a number of people in my family.
So you're saying that by January 21st, 2009, all U.S. troops would be out?
Well, I know I've argued that it actually happened before then. I've been pushing.
Right.
There were 11 of us back when the supplemental bill came up a few weeks ago that voted to cut off that funding here. There's no other way I know to bring this to a head than through that mechanism.